Hello, my name's Morag Freethy and I'm the Managing Director of Eurest. Welcome to our second in our series of conferences around the future of food and work. And today I'm hosting from Thick Broom Farm in the Midlands, who are one of our potato growers. And that's fitting for today's theme of conference, which is sustainability and purpose. In Eurest, we've been working in many of our outlets throughout the pandemic, supporting the nation and giving key workers a welcome break during their working day. But the big question is, what does the future look like and what next? We've got a lineup of experts who can talk about sustainability in the future and food and workspace. Coming from a farming family, I love to come out and meet our British producers. And I think during this crisis, most of us have reflected on what we probably took for granted previously, where our food comes from, the impact it has on the environment and the impact it has on the industry. Food defines our family. It defines who we are from a health and well-being and performance perspective, both inside and outside of work. And buying British is really important to me personally, supporting our British farmers. So grab a cup of tea, enjoy our lineup of experts in our conference. And if you want to ask a question and you're watching live, then you can ask the question on web chat. I'm going to start by introducing Liz Forte, who's our Health and Wellbeing Director. Liz has been talking to a large number of consumers, and she's going to share with you insight in what the future could look like and what future organisations could shape up like.
Hello, I'm Liz Forte. I'm Health and Wellness Director at Compass UK and Ireland. At our last event, we explored the future of food and work with a focus on people, so really looking at physical and mental well-being. We explored the idea of building resilience through connections and how we can take that forward beyond COVID. Recently, Birkbeck University's Organisational Psychology Department have published a guide to managing your well-being at work. And the thing that really struck me is that giving back is in there. Giving back makes us feel good. We've all been doing much more of that recently, with shopping for neighbours, donating to food banks, supporting local businesses. So with that in mind, I'd like to shift our focus to purpose and sustainability and how that is connected to health and well-being and how we can take that forwards at work. As the way that we're working evolves, a really interesting conversation is emerging about the changing nature of capitalism. So from people striving to be the best in the world to being the best for the world. And I think there's a real revolution as key stakeholders are really understanding that sustainability is as big a business issue as profitability. Purpose is part of this conversation, and much like the race to appear more green, there's lots of purpose washing going on right now, as firms are doing this to tick CSR boxes. But there is increasing evidence to suggest that having a strong sense of purpose does improve the bottom line. Take the rise in the B Corp movement, a community of leaders using businesses as a force for good by balancing profit with purpose. Or the Patagonia brand, they increased sales by running a campaign called Don't Buy, actively encouraging consumers to really think about what they were buying in the craziness of Black Friday. And we're also seeing an increase in consumers choosing to support social enterprises. I know at Compass, this is a subject that's really close to our hearts. We're already working with over 20 social enterprises and are continuing to build relationships in this space. This change in attitude to sustainability and purpose runs across the generations. For Generation Z, it's all about people before profits, with 60% wanting to change the world compared to 39% of millennials. Gen Z take it as a given, so we should remember that having a clear purpose with meaning and fulfilment whilst making a tangible difference is a key driver in attracting and retaining talent. The increasing desire to connect with businesses that have a clear purpose and a planet-positive mindset stretches down to what we choose to eat. Our Global Eating at Work survey showed a really marked difference across the generations with attitudes to sustainable meals, with under 30s choosing more vegan options. But you don't have to be vegan or vegetarian to have a positive impact on the planet. There's an increase in plant-based, that's been hard to miss, and the meat-free alternatives are popular not just with vegans and vegetarians, but with flexitarians as well. There are 45 million flexitarians in the UK and only 5 million vegetarians and vegans. Following elements of a plant-based diet is widely acknowledged to be beneficial both for you and for the planet. But the important thing to note is that even meat eaters can follow a sustainable diet. The interesting thing for me is that people are choosing to be flexitarian. And flexitarianism is a mainstream group, so it covers all ages and social classes, and it's an attitude and a mindset, not just a label. Sustainable nutrition has become a hot topic, an approach that optimises health and nutritional outcomes whilst restoring the key ecosystems and farming livelihoods on which we depend. Our industry is changing the way it thinks about the way we use food. I like the cradle-to-cradle concept by McDonough and Braungart, designing everything with a future use in mind, so waste becomes food. Our brilliant chef Ryan is a pioneer of stop food waste, and working with him, I've really thought a lot about what I'm wasting and actually how you can take a lot of things that you typically throw in the bin and incorporate it into a really delicious recipe. And as we look to the future, it might be that we all aim for carbon neutral menus. UK-grown seasonal produce is an important part of that. And as our farmers who supply our restaurants nationwide tell us, it's all about sustainable processes to achieve sustainable growth. I know that some suppliers are starting to use blockchain technology to show full traceability along the supply chain. So for a category like coffee, for example, at the point of purchase, you'd be able to see exactly where your coffee came from, how much the farmer got paid, and the carbon footprint of the product. It's a really nice, easy way to help consumers make sustainable choices and give back. But it's not just about where the food comes from. The happier and healthier we are, the more productive we can be. And we do know that even in normal times, absence through ill health costs UK businesses £91 billion per year. A 2019 study on Britain's healthiest workplaces showed that 3/4 of these absences were caused by unhealthy lifestyle choices and poor mental health. So how we address this is really important. We need sustainable solutions that enhance daily lives and don't really preach at people or make them feel that they need to choose. Areas to focus on from a sustainability perspective: reducing food waste through creative recipes and better food preservation, developing food waste recipes that appeal to purpose-driven consumers and highlighting these recipes on the menu. Setting targets for each restaurant to encourage consumers to help reduce food waste. Pre-portioned meals. As we return to work in the new world, food will be pre-portioned or served rather than self-served, which will reduce food waste. Local sourcing. Supporting local businesses and communicating this to our customers. Recycling. Making it easier to recycle with clearer communications to reduce the impact of disposables and plastics. Power of the community. Celebrate our communities and local heroes. Food redistribution. Partner with charities and food redistribution networks and create opportunities for volunteering. There's been much talk about working from home in the future of the office. According to Birbeck, one of the key elements that we miss when we work from home is the informal communication. Now, rather than being a distraction or a nice to have, these informal communications, they're the social glue that keep us all together and are actually essential in helping you to build teams and manage relationships effectively. So if we're not all in a lift or waiting for a coffee together, we could miss out on these vital informal connections, I guess, and that could present a real risk to us working effectively. So whilst an organisation might save money on travel and office space, for example, if they move to a home working pattern, there are potentially some hidden costs that could come with recruiting new employees if the existing ones leave because they feel disenfranchised. How it feels to be part of a company really matters. A recent article in Forbes stated that millennials are now choosing to join an organisation based on culture ahead of pay. Key elements include health and wellbeing programmes, healthcare provision, flexible workspaces fuelled by great food and good coffee. That's also a major draw. Even in more traditional offices, being part of something bigger has real appeal. According to Jane Clay of architecture and design firm Gensler, even those who work from home want the option to come into the workplace. It's the camaraderie, the sense of engagement. Going forwards, we need to think about the spaces we're in and how we future-proof them. A sustainable office doesn't just mean an efficient one from a heating and air purifying perspective. So what does the future workplace look like? Nature, technology and community are all becoming increasingly important. WeWork predicts we'll move away from open plan completely and towards cellularisation, different sized spaces that can be reconfigured. Elliot Postma, partner at Heatherwick Studio, agrees. He says, It was previously thought that full collaboration was best, but there are introverts and extroverts, and offices need to accommodate both. Whilst we need quiet spaces, integrating a sense of community is really important, and ultimately, we're looking at a shift towards workspaces that prioritise employee well-being over profitability. Overall, when we look to the future of working, we can see that change is being driven by businesses, employees, and consumers. And organisations need to consider 3 basic psychological needs in their approach to purpose and sustainability. Giving people freedom and control over their choices. Right now, where many of us feel more restricted than ever, this sense of autonomy is really important. Giving people a perceived choice in relation to their environment, what they eat, and the impact these choices have on others. Developing a sense of belonging, making sure colleagues feel connected, valued, and supported by others. Although we need to be physically distanced from others, we do not need to be socially distanced. Broadly speaking, we need to be receiving both informational and emotional support in our workplaces, instilling a sense of competence among the workforce, that even in these uncertain times we can still get things done, that we can still learn and develop. No one could have predicted that we'd find ourselves in this situation, but I do believe we've learned some fundamental lessons that we don't want to unlearn or forget. So in this context, looking at purpose and sustainability is really important, and that's something that we're doing with our clients, looking at their cafes and restaurants and helping them to provide more sustainable choices that will help their employees to feel a sense of belonging and giving back, promoting health and happiness for the future.
Next, I'd like to introduce Kirsten Saylor, who's an Associate Professor in Social and Spatial Networks at UCL and also co-founder of Brainy Birds. And Kirsten's expertise and enthusiasm is around buildings, space, and behaviours within those buildings as well.
My name is Dr. Kirsten Saylor. I am an Associate Professor at the Bartlett School of Architecture at University College London. I am an architect by training, but I've actually never built a house. What I'm interested in are the social implications of architecture. So what do buildings do to people? In my career, I look at different types of buildings, and my main interest is really from a sociological point of view, but also with a very scientific lens. So I'm interested in the mechanisms behind the world, how things work, and what influences what. And that's why I've also founded a business, which is called Brainy Birds. And at Brainy Birds, we are interested in introducing scientific thinking into workplace design. That means moving away from a lot of the fads and fashions and trends in the workplace community and apply more data-driven principles to understand what is really going on and then make recommendations based on best knowledge. When we think of buildings as social entities, thinking of how buildings do things to people, we can think of 2 mechanisms, 2 things that buildings do. On the one hand, buildings are there to bring people together, and on the other hand, buildings can keep people apart. Bringing people together, buildings channel our movement flows, they make people encounter each other, meet each other in the corridor, chance encounters. All of those are very important. On the other hand, buildings can keep people apart. If you think, for example, of a courtroom, the Royal Courts of Justice, for example, is designed in a way that it enables different groups of people to move through the building without casually bumping into each other, because you don't want that. You want people to meet in the courtroom, where then you have highly ritualized proceedings. Now, every building needs both elements of bringing people together and keeping people apart. And it is architects who take those decisions. Architects design a wall. And if you have a wall is a wall is a wall. It blocks visibility, it blocks movement, it keeps people apart. So it is at the essence of architectural decisions that then has these impacts on how people can behave in buildings. In workplaces, we typically need both. We need people to come together, for example, to collaborate, but we also need people to be kept apart so that you can take a phone call, you can concentrate, get some work done, get your head down. In normal times, we would speak of workplaces, of offices, mainly with a focus on bringing people together, on unplanned encounters, on chance meetings, on shared moments, having a cup of tea or coffee together, and to really enforce the social aspects of these workplaces. Now, with the COVID-19 pandemic, office life has changed massively, alongside all other changes in our lives. It's a very big, unasked for experiment. No scientist has designed this experiment. It just happened, and we all had to adjust. Actually, we've all adjusted quite well. We've made it work somehow. The working from home, the having multiple people in one household, the being in small places, all of that we've made work. However, there are a lot of things that we're losing. Recent surveys have shed a light on that topic. There was one survey by Spacelab Architects with around 1,200 respondents, and they found that actually 47% of people are happier working from home than they were coming to the office. Another survey done by Leesman with more than 10,000 replies, and they are still collecting data, has found that on average, the average working from home setup is more productive than the average office. What is the problem then? The problem lies in the detail, and on average, that masks a lot of things that go underneath the surface. How did we make it work? What are those details? We have made working from home work by planning like mad, all of us. We've scheduled meetings, we've planned all those meetings in advance, we've circulated documents, and then all of those planned meetings kind of go well because we can use video conferencing softwares. However, there are certain things that really get lost in all of this planning, and of course that's the spontaneity, the unplanned encounters, the things that you really can't plan for. So what we've lost in the working from home experiment during COVID-19 is the unplanned encounters. Those unplanned encounters are really quite important for work processes. Research has found that both creativity and innovation are impacted by unplanned encounters. Good ideas often don't come from your small immediate team, but from others outside of your immediate team. And if you don't meet those people, and often it wouldn't be seen as so important to schedule a meeting with them, then there's a whole load of things that is getting lost. That's particularly important for more junior people, for people who have newly started in organizations, also because they don't really have a grip on organizational culture, on how do things work here, on who would I ask for what. Access to senior people gets lost because a lot of the times their diaries and inboxes are really busy, so catching someone as they go in and out of a meeting room to just quickly ask a question, get sign off on a report, all of those things are much more complicated. There are two other things we've lost. One of them is a real sense of community, a sense of belonging. All I can see now is my local task. There's something I do and I get my head down and I do it, or I spend on video calls. But getting a feeling of my organisation and the things that we do as a whole organisation, that sense of belonging, sense of community, all of that just shrinks and we get very little sense of that. And possibly that's one of the reasons why the weekly clapping for the NHS, it's one of our few moments of solidarity with others, of kind of feeling that we're part of something bigger. And that is not only dampening the mood, it also makes interactions and collaborations much more difficult. So it has a serious impact on working processes. Final point, the other thing we lose, and that's a very interesting one. It has to do with psychology, and that is the cognitive scaffold. So any setting, any physical place gives us a sense of how we behave. We walk into a cathedral and we immediately know how to behave. We tone down our voices, we are quiet, we are respectful. The same with a library. We don't need anyone to say hush. We kind of know that this is what we do. And the same happens with our workplaces. We know where the tea points are. We know where to get a good coffee. We know how to get our lunch, who we pass by. We say hellos. So those kinds of cognitive scaffolds are all lost, and we find collaboration and getting in touch with people a lot harder. Now, we've come to the point where a lot of people are very eager to return to the office after weeks and months of working from home. Let's be clear, until a vaccine is found by scientists, we will have to live with restrictions and limitations. The most important one of these is distancing. I'm very keen to talk about physical distancing and not social distancing, because what we really need is social get-together, but to keep at safe physical distances. We need to rethink the office, and that's also a big chance. It's a big opportunity to challenge conventional wisdom and to think about what kind of offices, what kind of workplaces do we really want to have? And maybe it's not the same kind of office that we had before. Before we come to that, to the how could the office look in that transition period until a vaccine is found, one of the most important things for organizations is to keep flexible and to keep thinking, because the ground is shifting underneath our feet and there's a lot of things we still don't know about this virus, about how it's being transmitted, about how infectious it is. So while that science is being built, we will have to be patient and rethink and reflect of what we could do. The most important thing when we think about the office and coming back to the office is to rely on what the office does best. And it does best social interactions, sense of community, for people to connect with one another. So that's the focus of what we should be thinking about when we rethink the office. The other thing to keep in mind is that we don't want to get back to average offices. Remember, average offices scored lower than average working from home. We have to think about the best possible office experience. How can we provide workplaces that people really want to go back to? And in order to do that, we really need data. And that is not just relying on surveys of other people, but that's also collecting your own data and generating your own insight for your organization of what people need and require and what would make a great office for them. Finally, people might be wondering, what are some practical steps that each organization can do as they think about returning to the office? The first thing to keep in mind is to really take it slowly. If you can, from an organizational, economic point of view and a social point of view, just take it slowly. And we're still in a pandemic, there's still risks for infection, and if you can keep those low, that's the best way forward. When you think of coming back, you could think about what are the first people that need to come back. And that could be from a workflow point of view, from a materials point of view, those that really need to be in the office because they're working with special equipment, for example. Also those that have special needs, for example, working in really small homes. They might be really happy to move out and go outside. Likewise, there are other people who will be less keen to come back for whatever their reasons are, and that's very important to establish. Once we know who are the first people to come back, we might also want to think about shifts and rotas. Capacities will be very much reduced to, depending on office layout, probably around 20% if you have to keep distance. So with that 20%, it's worth thinking about two things. On the one hand, what is your layout? And to make the most of your layout, there's always things that people can do with layout. If there are, for example, multiple staircases, you could think about splitting upward and downward movement. You could think about creating loops in the workplace, so that minimizes the chance of encounter. Those kinds of things are things that everyone can do. I don't think it's the time just yet to do massive new office refurbishments or reorganizations. I've heard people say we should now all go back to cubicles, we all need walls between us. That's certainly not the right answer. The right answer would be see what's the right thing for your organization and to collect some data, and then to look at steps that can be taken in that transition period. But also in the longer term, we might want to think about the thing that we're missing. How can we replace that? So the get together of people, if you design those rotas and shifts of who comes back and who might still be working from home, think about mixing up departments. So don't stick everyone from one department into the same shift, because those ties within departments, there's very strong glue of a team, and they can do their planned encounters via video conferencing. But if you mix them up with other teams, that's what organizational innovation literature suggests is what we miss most. The final point, if we're coming back into the office, just really think about evaluating as you go along what kind of organization you want to be, what works for your people, and culture, sense of belonging, community. Those are all very important points, and those can be done via remote connection, but most importantly, when we come back to the workplace, focus on those. And another practical thing to be doing, for example, is to think about breakout spaces. So rather than shrinking them, is to really extending them, extending kitchen spaces where, for example, you could have two people standing at a distance and having a short conversation. So make those spaces available. After all, the office is our place for social encounter, and we should fight for it and get it back for all of us.
I'd like to introduce Pete Champagne, who's been travelling the UK talking to clients and understanding what they're looking for in order to make their businesses sustainable in the future.
Hi everyone, my name is Pete Champagne. I'm the Sales Director for Eurest. Working in business development, I can see firsthand the influences and the changes to the market. Listening to clients, understanding their needs, their frustrations, their challenges, and their opportunities, and what really excites them about the future. Now, the COVID-19 crisis has given us all time to pause and reflect. And whilst there's a flurry of activity and planning around the now, a lot of clients and businesses are beginning to think about what happens next and how do they future-proof their operations. Clearly, being part of something bigger is quite important to everyone now. Caring about the environment, what's going on across the planet, really helps, motivates a real sense of purpose for everyone. It's becoming increasingly evident that we all need that assurance that we know where food products come from, the provenance, the traceability, the food miles, who makes it, literally farm to fork. And what's really exciting for me is that we're now applying our purpose in the support of social enterprises throughout our businesses in the UK. Businesses like Nemi Tea, Life Water, Miss Macaroon, all helping us provide our customers in a more sustainable and purposeful way. I'd now like to introduce you to Change Please, a social enterprise with significant purpose in transforming the lives of those within the coffee industry. We've been working with Change Please for around 6 to 8 months across our business within the UK. Jamal is going to talk to you about the great attributes of socially responsible coffee.
Hi there, I'm Jamal Azell, and I'm the founder of Change Please Coffee, which is a new supplier of coffee into Compass and Eurest. What I love about coffee is its ability to bring people together and connect people, but also to create a sense of community, which is especially important now in a post-lockdown world. I'm also really excited about the changing trends in coffee, which enable us to change the world for a better place, both from an environmental and societal perspective. Not all coffee is equal. Coffee might look the same, it might taste the same, but really what's happening behind the scenes, from what farmer is growing the coffee, how they're growing the coffee, how it's shipped, the roasting process that coffee goes through, all the way up to the person who's serving you that coffee, is fundamentally important for us to create a better planet, a more equitable society, but also to make sure that what we're doing on a daily basis is sustainable. At Change Please, we are a not-for-profit social enterprise. We find people that are homeless and rough sleeping, and we train them to be specialty level baristas, to really give them an opportunity to lift themselves out of homelessness. So we find people at shelters, and with organisations like Crisis, Shelter, Big Issue, we then give that person an opportunity with a 1 to 3 month training programme. The people that make it through become Change Please employees, and we pay them a living wage, where in London it works out to £22,360 a year. In 10 days, we offer all of our staff housing. So that means in 10 days they're not homeless anymore. A bank account, therapy support, and in partnership with Compass, we support our staff into onward employment to work in many of Compass and Eurest's locations, to really give that person a sustainable way out of homelessness. One of the key parts of our process is to really support somebody who has mental health issues, or whether you're a victim of domestic abuse, ex-offender, a military veteran, have OCD, to really support somebody with therapy support. And all of the revenue and profits that we generate working through Compass goes into those areas of housing, therapy support, and paying a living wage. So we have a responsibility to ensure that farmers are paid fairly for the coffee that they grow. But we also have a responsibility to make sure we pass on and educate information to farmers, so they're able to grow coffee in a way which makes it as sustainable for them as possible. So what we do is speak to farmers and help to share information from more affluent farming communities in, say, Brazil, Colombia, to poorer ones in, say, Kenya or Ethiopia, so that actually they change the way they grow coffee and farm coffee to be one which reduces deforestation, allows them to change their processes from a natural process to a washed process, and therefore increase the amount of yield and productivity that they have on a yearly basis. It's very tempting for farmers to cut down trees and increase the amount of arable land that they're growing in. If we can try and encourage them to increase the amount of shade-grown coffee that they're producing, it means that the coffee will naturally be organic, but also it will increase the amount of birds, insects, animals that are able to use those trees as protection and cover and as their natural habitat. It also naturally increases biodiversity as well. So I see as an opportunity for us in the future is to really work with farmers to encourage them to grow shade-grown coffee. And that's something that I hope we're going to see in the next couple of years. So we work with farmers directly at origin to help educate them and give them the best practices to be able to grow more sustainable coffee. But we also try to find farms that are working with their local communities as well on a more social impact basis. So we work with a farm in Peru that supports women who are victims of domestic abuse. Another farm in Tanzania that supports landmine victims. The coffee then comes to the UK, where it's roasted by our sister organisation, Old Spike Roastery, to then support people who are homeless into employment. The coffee then comes to a range of sites, and it's sold by people that are homeless, either through Compass locations or on the streets of London and across the country. We only use cups that are made out of plants, not plastic, and we convert all of our waste coffee grounds into biofuel. This way we can be as sustainable as possible, not just from bean to cup, but from bean to coffee grounds. Current research shows that 45% of people will pay more for their cup of coffee if it benefits the people more that are growing the coffee beans. When we heard that stat, we started to look into other ways that we can drastically improve the amount of money that farmers are earning. So we partnered with an organisation in Holland to use blockchain technology to really track that process that the coffee makes from bean to our cup. And that allows us to reduce the amount of fraud, corruption, track the pollution trail, but most importantly, make sure that that farmer earns as much money as possible for growing the coffee that we drink on a daily basis. Typically, a farmer will earn 1/15 of a penny of a £2.50 cup of coffee. But what we're able to do to make sure that farmers are being paid fairly is to ensure that a farmer earns 1 penny from a £2.50 cup of coffee at least. Now that means we're able to have a sustainable way of working, improve the amount of money that farmers earn, but most importantly, have full transparency on the way that we represent what coffee we purchase to our clients. So this technology we hope will come out in the next couple of years, where most likely we'll be able to have an iPad or a piece of technology on the front of a counter that says today's coffee or this month's coffee has been purchased from these farmers and showing exactly how much those farmers are earning. Now that will allow us to have full transparency, but also put pressure on other organisations that aren't being as sustainable and as transparent, and allow us to really have as much opportunity to change the world that we live in. Undoubtedly, we've seen an increase in demand from businesses asking to work with social enterprises. And this has coincided with the number of Gen Zs and millennials who are now entering the workplace and working in organisations that Compass and Eurest represent. Gen Zs will comprise of nearly 40% of all consumers in the next 2 years. That accounts for nearly 2.26 billion people. So there's no wonder there's a changing demand from consumers and employees of organisations for social enterprise products. A recent study from Deloitte showed that on average 42% of millennials would deepen their relationship with businesses if they purchased social or environmental impact products. And 38% would reduce their relationship if businesses were not. And 59% of employees of organisations would leave their companies in 2 years, and 74% in 5 years if they were not prioritising these issues. We see this impact on a daily basis. When colleagues go to a Change Peace coffee bar and speak to one of our baristas and hear that they were a victim of domestic abuse, an ex-offender, a military veteran, and just, the same as all of us, a brother, a sister, a mother, a friend, that really helps to engage the impact of what we do, but also engage employees and consumers at the same time. So future coffee innovations from 2020 onwards will really continue to include ready-to-drink coffees, alternative coffees such as macadamia nut lattes, rainbow coffees, matcha, beetroot, all of those wonderful, exciting, colourful coffees that we've all grown to see over the last 16 months. We're also seeing a whole range of new alternative milks as well. So starting from almond milk, soya milks that we've all known, and oat milks, to now looking at things like pea, rice, hemp, are really going to change our purchasing behaviour and the way our colleagues and employees are purchasing alternative milks as well. Mostly from a health perspective, but also looking at an environmental perspective as well. We're also seeing a whole new range of sustainable cups. So typically the best case option that we've seen for sustainable products are the CPLA, non-plastic, biodegradable cup. The only challenge with this is it needs to be industrially composted. So we're now starting to see new options come about, especially bamboo paper cups that are disposable, which mean they don't have to be industrially composted and they can just go into a normal waste stream and decompose. That will be the holy grail of sustainable packaging within the coffee industry, if it happens, and we're expecting to see that within the next year. Between 2018 and 2019, reusable cups have become incredibly popular, but it's still very convenient to use a disposable cup. So we wanted to try some nudge behaviour to see whether or not we can encourage consumers to stop using our disposable cups. So we did some trials where typically a site would offer a 50p discount if they didn't use a disposable cup and they bought their own reusable cup. And the uptake of that from a £2.50 cup of coffee was relatively low. We then changed attitudes where we said the cost of the coffee is £2, and to have a disposable cup, there'll be a 50p penalty. So the end cost of the coffee for a disposable cup at £2.50 was exactly the same, but the use of disposable cups drastically dropped just by changing the attitude and the narrative around having to pay or have a penalty for that disposable cup. And we really feel that that option can really help to encourage consumers to stop using disposable cups and nudge them towards bringing their own reusable one. Undoubtedly, we've all been using technology more during coronavirus times. Whether that's purchasing products online, connecting with friends, family and colleagues online, technology use has been key during the last 2 or 3 months. And post-lockdown, we really see the use of pre-ordering apps as being fundamental in making customers feel safe when they're coming into cafe environments. An example of that has been a recent study that we've done showing that 61% of our customers will feel more comfortable going into cafe environments, and 47% of our customers will go to coffee shops more if they know there is a pre-ordering solution available to them. So we really see this in the short and medium term as being a fundamental way of enticing consumers back into a coffee setting and really make them feel comfortable about re-engaging in those environments. So we've really seen an increase in consumers buying home-ordered coffee via subscriptions. And we really see that continuing over the next 6 to 12 months, especially because those consumers were purchasing coffee paraphernalia such as French presses, V60s, Chemexes to make that coffee at home. Even some people buying full-on espresso machines for them to brew their coffees. So we feel a huge opportunity within workplace environments is to offer coffee bags which are either pre-ground or whole bean, so people could then buy them and take them home, or also brew those products at their desk, with the opportunity to sell retail products as well, such as a little V60, so they can brew the coffee at their desk. Those little changes will entice people back to coffee environments and make them feel comfortable. We have a great opportunity to change the world that we live in through the coffee that we choose to buy. Not only supporting the farmer of origin, the person that roasted the coffee, but also supporting the person that served you your coffee on a daily basis. Coffee has a fantastic way of creating a sense of normality, habit, ritual that we've all been missing over the last 2 or 3 months. And we want to prove that the last 2 or 3 months was just a blip, and we can all come back to that sense of normality. And working with Compass, we want to try and change the lives of the people that we're supporting all the way through the supply chain and prove that we really can make the world a better place. Thank you.
Next up is Ryan Holmes, Eurest's Culinary Director, and he has a fantastic passion for both food and zero food waste. My favourite is his coffee grind granola, but he also makes a mean meringue from chickpea water. So listen up and enjoy.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm the Culinary Director for Eurest. Food and fluids at the right time in the right quantity can improve our performance. It can mean the difference between a gold or a silver medal at the Olympics, improve on a personal best, or get us mentally ready for military operations. In a similar way, your diet choices help your performance at work. Nutrition is an essential part of your health and well-being. It provides energy to fuel concentration, helps improve productivity, and give you that extra bit to meet those tight deadlines. That's why at Eurest, we have a choice of foods for a range of dietary preferences, and a specifically designed health and wellbeing program to support your mental and physical performance and resilience. I'm making a Buddha bowl today. Now, a Buddha bowl is the perfect one-plate plant-based dish. It never bores because you're getting lots of different bites of lots of different food. It always contains a starch, a green, and some form of plant-based protein. It's a great way to use up different foods. Basically, anything goes. Anything you have in the fridge could be swapped out. It's a dish that never bores, and it's packed full of goodness. In our Buddha bowl, we've got a real mixture of colours and textures, with each ingredient providing its own nutritional benefit. Now, we're going to start building the Buddha bowl. To start with, we're going to put in our brown rice and quinoa, both whole grains, much more nutritious than its white alternative. Now, for this one, I've steamed the quinoa and brown rice, and we've just left it in there, but you can serve it cold if you want to. Next in the bowl, we're going to put our sweet potato, squash and asparagus. Now, I've charred these off on the char grill. You could serve them hot or cold, it's entirely up to you. So first up we'll put our butternut squash in. Now I've put some spices on here, just a nice lemon curry spice just to give it a nice bit of flavour. Pop those in there. Now for our sweet potato. Sweet potato and squash are both packed full of vitamins A and C. Also going into the bowl is asparagus. Now asparagus is bang in season, and we've just char grilled that off lightly just on the pan with a little bit of oil. We're always thinking of food waste in the kitchen, and the humble chickpea is a great example of that. Now, for this dish, we've just roasted the chickpeas off, just in a few spices, but there's all that fantastic liquid that's left in the can, full of protein. So what we do is whip that up and treat it just like you would a meringue, and it gives you a fabulous vegan dessert. Now, we're just gonna add these to the bowl. Nice crispy chickpeas. Now, you could serve these hot, or you could serve them cold. And of course, these chickpeas are packed full of protein. Now we are going to add some vibrant colour to the dish with one of my favourites, a beetroot hummus. Beetroot in season at the moment, and this is going to add a little bit of moisture to the dish, as well as that lovely purple colour. We're just going to drop that into the middle. And of course, this adds another source of protein. Now for a bit of crunch to the dish. So keeping the vegetables raw protects all the nutrients and minerals in there. So I've taken the carrot, which we've just julienned. We've dressed it with some sesame oil and just a few black sesame seeds to give it a really nice depth of flavour. A butter bowl always contains a leafy green. Now for this dish, we're going to use some spinach, which is in season, but you don't have to use spinach. You could use kale or rocket. Now we're adding even more crunch to the dish with some seasonal radishes, sprouts, and spring onions. When we're developing recipes like this one, we always try to make sure everything we put on the plate or the bowl meets 3 key criteria. Firstly, it's got to be delicious. We offer a choice of foods, always full of flavour, filling and wholesome. Then we try to think of in terms of a mindful plate. By that, I mean having a variety of balanced options with mindful portion sizes to make sure we're getting the full benefits of the nutrients. Finally, we're working hard to promote more sustainable eating by incorporating plant-based proteins, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds into our dishes. In the development kitchen, we refer to this as being plant-forward. These radishes will just give a nice kick to the bowl and also add another dimension of colour. Essentially, it's about being more mindful in what we eat. As we know, we should eat more vegetables, so adding an extra portion to every dish is an easy win. As chefs, we've had to learn to cook more plant-based food and get to grips with ways of using meat alternatives. This doesn't mean we have to cut out meat and fish completely from our diets, but by choosing meat from sustainable sources, alternative cuts, or different varieties of fish, say a collie or a flounder, what's perceived as ugly fish from the sea, rather than always using haddock and cod. By making those choices, we can make a real difference. As we're using more sustainable foods, we're also looking at ways we can reduce food waste in our kitchen. So the leftovers we have from the dish I've created today won't go to waste. The spring onion tops and the radish will go in a really nice food waste kimchi. We've already touched on the water from the chickpeas. That'll be used to whip up some lovely meringues. And we're also looking at other ways how we can reduce food waste in our kitchens to create fabulous products. For example, coffee grinds. We serve thousands of coffees around our business every single day. We take those grinds and use them to make muffins, granola, cookies. There's a whole range of bakery products we can use to make that. That's just one example of some of the great dishes we're creating in the development kitchen. We can also think about seasonality. Now that's something that's really important to me, that myself and the chefs across Eurest, we work within the seasons. We work with some fabulous local growers up and down the country, and we've incorporated lots of that fresh local produce into the butter bowl today. Now we're going to put the finishing touches on our butter bowl. So a few pomegranate seeds and then some pumpkin seeds, sunflower and sesame. Going back to what I said at the beginning, good nutrition is vital to performance, be it on the sports field or in the workplace. As a chef, my goal is to create dishes that not only improve your health and performance, but look after the environment too. All put together in a way that looks, and most importantly, tastes delicious. Thank you for your time.
I'd like to introduce you to Tom Benton from Nature's Heart, who's going to talk us through how the Bermeo brothers grew Nature's Heart as a very small business into a globally recognised brand by supporting 1,000 farmers in the foothills of the Andes in sustainably growing their golden berries.
Hi, my name's Tom Benton and I'm General Manager for Terra Fertile UK and our brand Nature's Heart. Terra Fertile was formed in 2005 in Ecuador by 3 brothers called David, Raul and Daniel. But actually the story started in the 80s with their father Jose. He worked with local farmers in Ecuador, which is at about 2,500 meters on the equator in South America. And he worked with local farmers who grew vegetables and he dried them for them. His aim was to help increase their income by drying them so that they could sell them all year round and also to major companies in order to increase their income. And he was very successful. But then sadly, one day in 2004, they lost a major contract. And that meant that those farmers who'd started out drying those vegetables suddenly didn't have customers and didn't have an income. So David, Raul and Daniel got together and they went back to Ecuador and they started drying fruits. But what they realized is they needed something unique. So that's when they went into the Andes and they looked and they came across the goldenberry. It's an indigenous crop that grows in the Andes mountains. You can get it in other parts of the world as well, but it does particularly grow well in Ecuador and Peru and in Colombia. And so what they did was they realized that there wasn't that many people growing the goldenberry plant. So they set up a nursery and they started growing small plants. And then they worked with the farmers in that area in order to make a more sustainable living. And the important thing to know about goldenberry is they're delicious, but I would say that, of course, but they're also nutritious. They've got more potassium than bananas per 100 gram. They've got more iron than spinach, and they've got more fibre than prunes. So the brothers found the goldenberries. They'd set up their brand, Nature's Heart. Since 2004, David, Raul and Daniel have built a world-leading plant-based brand in South America. And we've recently started working with Nestle. We firmly believe in helping our farmers. And we have a sustainability program called the Goldenberry Plan. And the purpose of this plan is to help our farmers to make a sustainable living through exporting their fruits around the world. But because not all of them grow goldenberries, or not all of them have the capability or the knowledge of how to do it, that's why we started our program. So we have a nursery in Ecuador, which grows the very small seedlings into small plants that we then give to our farmers. And they then take them and grow our organic goldenberries using only the compost that we provide them from the factory. So the waste from the factory then goes into compost to then help the farmers to grow the seedlings. So one example was for Marta in the Cumbres region of Ecuador. She was making bracelets, making maybe between $5 to $10 a week from selling those bracelets. She started working with us, we gave her the seedlings, and fairly soon she had 250 plants, which covers an area no bigger than the space just here. She started making between $150 to $200 because we would guarantee the prices and buy the crop off her. And then she started growing up to 900 plants and made a significant income, which has helped to change her life. In Colombia, a country which has a few challenges, as I'm sure you're aware, we worked in the Nariño region, which unfortunately has quite a lot of poppy production. And we've worked with over 125 farmers to take them out of the illicit poppy growing trade. And they grow goldenberries now and making a much more sustainable and safe living. So hopefully that tells you a bit about what we're doing in Ecuador and Colombia and with our farmers and the difference that we have already made with them. But now I'd like to tell you a little bit more about what we're looking to do moving forward and working with you. So clearly we're looking at zero waste and we're looking at zero carbon, and we're working on that. We're also trying to be in our recyclable packaging, and if we can get into recycled already packaging, even better, and we'll have new news coming on that over the next year. But what I'm excited to talk to you about today is a commitment that we're signing up to that we haven't told anyone else about before. So we see an opportunity to do something a little bit different. So we've spoken to FareShare, who work with over 10,500 charities in the UK to distribute food to those who need it. And we've said for every 100 grams of food that gets bought in our brand in the UK, we'll give 100 grams to someone that needs it. And if they need potatoes, we'll make sure that 100 grams is 100 grams of potatoes. Because for us, sustainability is more than just doing the right thing by your farmers. It's about trying to make a positive difference. It's about trying to leave both a positive impact on the planet and on you, me, and everyone else who needs a bit of help from time to time.
I hope you'll agree that was a fantastic lineup. If you'd like to watch any of the sessions again, then they'll be available on the Eurest website. Our next session on the 15th of July will be tech focused, so I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.